It is one thing to simply experience the future, and another thing entirely to be part of creating and shaping it. Taking direction from Vision 2030, the UCT Centre for Extramural Studies has taken the leap and started our journey toward contributing to this reality. In support of Vision 2030, the Centre hosted a webinar series focused on futures, complexity, and design thinking. We invite you to engage the way the future of education and education of the future contributes to the way we experience the world, and more importantly, asking how we can co-create our future by unleashing human potential.
Complexity can't be captured in a diagram like this, and the reality is once we have captured it, things would have shifted. How do we design better experiences? How do we design better services? How do we differentiate ourselves from one organization to another? The big difference between trying to understand a problem and explore the problem. Exploring the problem is a voyage of discovery where you're looking for unknowns. You're not trying to make too much sense, but you're just trying to gather the data. So very, very important sense-making part. And then you move into the problem solving space, the solution mode, which talks to that bias to action of design thinking. Design and design thinking is a key graduate attribute that all students should have.
Reason is the slave of passion, and therefore you've got to begin with what people are passionate about, collaboration and multiplicity of lenses. You really do need that to solve problems.
In the South African and African context, we live with many wicked problems. How do we then deal with this issue of education? And one way to deal with it is to look at it through these different lenses and have other people besides just educators sitting in the room trying to solve the problem. What does future higher education look like? Who's designing that? Because if we are not part of designing it, someone else will design it for us. This is the journey that UCT is on. It's about saying it wants to be at the forefront of creating this culture at a higher education institution that says this is the culture that should exist in higher education institutions. When you come to a place like UCT, that is what you will be taught.
One's got to ask about the architecture of a university and where people learn and how they come together. We will always want to have social interaction, but the question with teaching is how will the latest technologies actually change teaching at schools and universities?
There is no simple answer, there is no quick way to get to a solution. And so embrace the complexity, embrace the unknown. And again, that does become very difficult for a lot of people, especially people who have been trained in a specific way. Whether it's a lawyer or finance person or engineer, we've been trained in a certain way that to get to the solution as quickly as possible. And that is where we do have a lot of problems. We try and jump to the solution quickly. And so spending time in that unknown space, making sure that you're actually asking the right question. Are you asking the right question? Now it is about different pockets within the institution putting up their hand and saying, this is how I want to contribute towards unleashing human potential. What does it mean for me as a student to unleash human potential? What is the blockages? What is holding me back? And I think that is starting to filter through the institution as far as saying different faculties are taking it on a different pace, and it is very much a personal journey as well. People have this idea of what the futures thinking is about, what future studies is about, scenario planning is about. It is crystal ball gazing, and then you're going to predict the future. But in futures, we don't predict the future. You cannot predict the future. But I always tell my clients what is important is that you can be part of creating a very different future. And so that's sort of one of the first principles sort of in the future studies and the scenario planning. But if we look at scenario planning and futures over the last few decades, where is it going? Where are we in it with it in South African context right now? So countries across the world, some of them have already have ministers of the futures, or specifically in the Nordic countries, there's a Swedish minister of the futures. We see organizations like UNESCO set up a chair of future studies. Countries in the Middle East like Abu Dhabi, they have futurists in residence. So we see these countries, that have taken on this whole concept of futures. It's not about having an academic course in future studies. It's about saying, how do we embed these skills of the future into our organization? And it's not about changing everything. It's about saying UCT has very good skills at the moment, but it's how do we enhance those core skills with these skills of the future studies, complexity, the design thinking. As an organization, whether you're in government or whether you're in private sector, and you want to go on this journey of being part of shaping the future, you need to embed this culture into your organization. How do you prepare for that? So if you are part of a big organization, if you're part of government, if you're part of an academic institution, and you don't have these skills of the future in your organization to prepare you for this dramatic changes that's coming, you're going to get disrupted. That's where the creativity comes in, because we use creativity for a lot of, to learn a lot of these tools and methodologies, and make it an environment that people can easily understand the tool. So the VC has created that space for people to come forward with what they believe this new future UCT should look like. And that is premised around this, what we call this massive transformative purpose of unleashing human potential. So, what does unleashed human potential look like in the future UCT?